So over the past week or so with the whole Paladins versus Overwatch hubbub, I've had a lot of time to think about what makes people hate a game. And I think I've narrowed it down to 3 big, kind of broad things that people say as their own justification for completely writing off a game without ever actually playing or trying it. Reason 1, Game A is a clone of Game B. Reason 2, it doesn't innovate enough. And reason 3, the story is predictable. Now, I don't have these in any particular order. I just kind of figured I'd tackle the cloning complaint first since it's topical with what's kind of going on right now between Paladins and Overwatch. It's pretty crazy. You can go into any Paladins video from any YouTuber on YouTube, look into the comments section, and you'll see tons of Overwatch players shitting on Paladins because it looks too much like Overwatch, and then a bunch of Paladins players saying that Overwatch copied Paladins and not the other way around. And then just endless fighting between those two groups. And then occasionally you'll get one guy coming in and saying, I don't care, it's fun. And what strikes me as crazy is that I'm pretty sure a lot of these people on either side of the fence, whether they're the Overwatch players or whether they're the Paladins players, have not even played the other game. Now, I'm not going to deny that both games have a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences in both games as well. And like I mentioned at the end of my previous video, why does it even fucking matter? These games may be very similar on the surface, and going from one to the other, you're going to feel some familiarity with the characters and some of the game types, but at the end of the day, each one manages to feel different enough to where you can easily prefer one or the other. Whether it's Overwatch's purity and simplicity, or whether it's Paladin's progression system and customization, chances are you're going to swing on one side of the fence and prefer one or the other. And as long as one isn't a direct copy of the other, like Legend of Titan, that mobile game that actually literally is Overwatch on the phone with just some shitty reskins, then both of these games have the right to exist because they're different. You can pick just about any 2 games from any genre that exists in gaming right now, and I'll bet you can easily grab a handful, let's say 5 features that match between those 2 games. It probably isn't even hard to find like very similar looking aesthetic parts of the game, whether it be part of the UI or maybe even the way some of the characters work. This is what game development is, and it's what game development has always been. By and large, game development is a very iterative process where you take the inspiration of something that you enjoyed and you apply it to your own ideas. Similarities are going to be inevitable if you're staying within the same genre. Of course, you're always going to have games that are kind of the outliers of this whole scenario, and they're like the most innovative games ever, but those are like really highly experimental titles most of the time, and it's pretty rare for them to do very, very well. It's because familiarity actually sells better than innovation. Okay, now that I said that, I actually kind of hate what I said, because if we look at the AAA industry, pretty much all we have anymore is familiarity over innovation. It's rare these days to see any AAA title to go outside of the bounds of what they have set up for themselves. Ubisoft is a perfect example. Basically every game that is published by Ubisoft is the same damn open world game reskinned into something else, such that it's become a bit of a joke. Oh, it's another Ubisoft open world game that I've played already a dozen times before. That I can actually see as a legitimate complaint, because we're actually getting tired of this genre. We're getting tired of this Ubisoft style open world. And this is gonna kind of swing into my next topic in a little bit of an awkward way now that I'm kind of thinking about it, because my second topic was lack of innovation. Now, coming off of that last topic with Ubisoft as our focus, they seem to be the perfect example of game developers not innovating enough and then people being tired of it. But obviously they keep doing it, so it's gotta keep selling pretty well. I don't know. It's hard to fault businessmen for wanting to make money, but we can still be sore about it, I guess. I don't know. I'm really torn on this part. We make fun of Ubisoft all the time for this, but at the same time, I see people completely shut down games because of a lack of innovation. Now, on the other side of this coin, we have something like The Last of Us, which, those of you who don't know what The Last of Us is, it is a single-player, first-person shooter game with a very big emphasis on story. Completely focusing on the gameplay here. There's nothing special about The Last of Us. I love The Last of Us. I think its story is great. I think its story is amazing. I love it. And I thought that the gameplay was fun. But if we're being realistic, the gameplay of The Last of Us was nothing special. It was basically your standard kind of tank shooter. Was it? I'm pretty sure it was kind of a tank shooter. It's like your standard cover shooter with kind of boring crafting and level design that was pretty good, but nothing super special. There was nothing innovative about The Last of Us gameplay-wise. And I've actually seen people say that The Last of Us is a bad game because the shooting is the same thing that we've played dozens of times before. And I have to ask, why? Why does that immediately make a game bad? Now, if Naughty Dog pulled an Ubisoft here and spat out another third-person shooter like The Last of Us with like the same kind of story and the same kind of crafting and the same kind of shooting, and it just felt the same from game to game every single year, then I can see the whole innovation argument being brought up. But let's say we get similar games from like Resident Evil, Capcom, I guess, the Resident Evil franchise, and then The Last of Us, and then, like, I don't know, what's another third-person shooter? Gears of War. Let's say all three of these games came out, and they have very similar shooting. Are you gonna just not play any of them because it's the same standard cover shooting mechanic that you've played dozens of times before? Probably not. That's probably not even gonna cross your mind. And one big difference between the Ubisoft style of open world games and the example that I just gave with these three third-person cover-based shooters is that while yes, a lot of these open world games from Ubisoft's side are made by different development houses, they all have the same exact formula. You have these third-person shooters from three different development houses and probably three different publishers. They're all going to feel completely different. And I think what it comes down to here with the whole innovation argument is it going to feel different from everything else we've played before? I don't know, I'm finding it really, really hard now that I'm talking about it to put this whole innovation argument into words. So if you have any thoughts on this, or if you think you're able to put this into words better than I am currently able to, I'd love it if you left a comment. But anyway, let's go on to the third point, which is the story is predictable. And this complaint can be applied to any artistic medium that has a story attached, whether it be a video game, a movie, or a TV show, or a book. I've seen people completely dismiss the story because they're able to predict what happens next. And kind of like what I said with the last point, why does it have to be completely unpredictable to be good? Like, so what if it's the same love story with the same tropes that you've seen in every anime ever? And who really cares if you're able to accurately predict what's going to come next? What really matters here is the composition of all these things put together. The characters, the story beats, the interpersonal relationships, the overall story. And even if you know exactly what's going to happen next, can you accurately say that you know exactly how this character is going to react and you're going to know exactly what this character is going to do after they react to some crazy event? I don't know. To me, it just seems like a pretty ridiculous reason to just completely write off anything. And that's everything that I mentioned in this video. When you're looking at games, and when you're trying to analyze them, and why you like or dislike them, any of these things can be complaints. In fact, all of these things put together can make for a very average game that maybe you don't think is bad, but you wouldn't really recommend it to anybody either. But if you use any single one of these by itself as the sole reason that a game is bad or not worth playing, are you really being fair to the game? Now, obviously everybody's entitled to their own opinion and to set their own priorities on what they find important in any game or any artistic medium. But I personally am kind of tired of seeing people say that a game sucks just because it looks like another game, or just because it doesn't do anything new. I mean, if you want innovation, just go play Nintendo games for the rest of your life. That's all they ever do. They innovate for innovation's sake. It's crazy. Or because they're able to predict the story. Games and art in general are just so much more complex than to be written off by one thing, such as this. And these three complaints that I mentioned in this video are also often so broad that they don't exactly actually fit into what you're trying to say with it. Oh, this is a clone. Is it really a clone, or does it have similarities? Oh, this doesn't innovate. Well, I mean, maybe it puts everything together in a kind of cool way that makes it a unique experience that everybody loves. You know, like The Last of Us. Oh, but the story's predictable. I mean, maybe, but does it fit well with the gameplay? And is it coherent, and is it enjoyable? Anyway, it's taken me much longer to put all this into words than I thought. It's cut down to about 10 minutes, but I've been sitting here for at least an hour trying to get the correct words out, and it's still coming out poorly. You can hear it. You can hear how poor it is. But hopefully I was able to get my message across. And if you guys have any thoughts on this whatsoever, please let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to know what you guys think about everything I've said in this video, and other things that you've heard people say as to why a game isn't worth playing. And as usual, if you liked the video, please be sure to hit that like button on your way out, and if you haven't already, be sure to follow me on Twitter at ingeniousclown, and hit that subscribe button for more awesome gaming content here in the future, and I will see you next time.